Are you to blame for your child's fussy eating? The resounding answer to that is no. I'm Lucy. I'm a paediatric dietitian and early years feeding specialist, and I am the early years dietitian. In this video, I am going to be talking you through the reasons that children become fussy, and I'm going to help you to start letting go of those negative emotions that you feel about yourself and start to understand your child's feeding. Because once you do that, you can really start moving forward and improving it. So, why are children fussy? Now, there's a lot of reasons. A lot of the reasons that parents blame themselves are things like, I didn't get the weaning process right. I don't sit and eat with my child. I haven't exposed them to enough foods. And I can tell you that none of those things create fussy eating, okay? It's going to happen anyway for a lot of reasons, which I'm about to go through. But like I say, I cannot stress enough, you as a parent have not created it. So why does fussy eating happen? There's a variety of things. The first one is previous medical history. So things to do with the body. That might include reflux as a baby. It might include ongoing or previous constipation. Food allergies are a trigger for having difficulties with eating. It might also be things like recurrent illness. So if you've had lots of bouts of tonsillitis or gastroenteritis, this can affect the feeding. And then we've also got things like a choking episode or just any incident to do with going to hospital, etc. Those are very strong links with changes in eating pattern. Then we've got things like previous life events. So moving house, the birth of a sibling, grief and losing a family member, the separation of parents, starting or moving schools. Now, some of these events might seem like they're really positive. You move into a nice new house that's got a garden, or you've got a new baby. But sometimes what will happen is when you've had an event like this, even just going on holiday, when your child feels out of their comfort zone, things have changed, what can happen is they start wanting to control the things that they are in control of, and feeding is one of those things. Another thing we look at is anxiety. So some children will have anxiety just purely related to eating, and other children will be more generalized anxiety that they suffer in day-to-day life. Now, if you have a child that suffers with anxiety, they are more likely to get anxiety around food, okay? Then we think about their personality. So just their temperament. How are they as a person? So some of the things that I would always be on the lookout for would be being a child that is quite cautious. So if you're the child that is wanting to stick with your mummy or daddy, not wanting to be the one that is running about, being really adventurous, that is definitely going to be the same with your food as well. If you are a highly emotional child, so those highly emotional children are sometimes the ones that get very emotional when they don't like a new food. And then what happens is parents start not giving those foods because they're trying to avoid those emotional outbursts. Words that are often used with the fussy eaters that I work with are things like, oh, they're very strong-willed. They know exactly what they want. These kind of characteristics will also lead to issues with eating. Next, we come on and think about the sensory system. Now, most of you, I'm sure, are very aware of our 5 senses. We also have 3 more senses that are all about how we feel inside. So do we recognize when we are hungry and full, when we need to go to the toilet, and our balance, you know, how far do I go back when I tip my cup up, etc. Now, when you eat, that is one of the only times in life that you are using all 8 of your senses all at the same time. Now, when I'm talking about the sensory system, I'm not talking about sensory processing and neurodivergence, although that is definitely something to consider for lots of us. What I'm just talking about is preferences. If you think about you and your partner or your friends, one of you maybe has the shower really hot, one doesn't. You might listen to music really loud. You might like really spicy, really flavorful food and someone else doesn't. These are just our preferences. Now, everybody has them, and this is going to affect how your child eats, okay? And if you have a child that is really sensitive to some of those sensory systems, maybe their smell or their taste, that may lead to issues with eating certain foods. So it's something to consider when you're looking at your child and thinking about the types of foods that they might eat. Then we've got oral motor skills. So your oral motor skills is your chewing and swallowing, okay? Now we know that children don't get what is classed as their adult chew until they're about 3 years old. So if your child is younger than that and they haven't developed their full adult chew, then they are still learning. What we see often is children that lean towards softer textures. It's one of the reasons that things like sausages or nuggets are often much more widely enjoyed than something like an actual piece of meat that is harder to chew. We might see children that don't like the skins on fruit. They leave the hard bits. Now, it's not necessarily if your child is doing those things that they have problems with their oral motor skills. But if you have a sense that your child is not able to chew and swallow as well as you'd think, or perhaps they're getting recurrent chest infections or they're coughing, etc. after they've eaten, that may be something that you need to have a look into. And then finally, we have what is just normal development, okay? So as humans, we go through a phase called food neophobia, and food neophobia literally translates into fear of new foods. And it is a reflex that we have developed as humans throughout our evolution. Now, we've been evolving for a very long time, and for the majority of that evolution, we have lived very differently to how we do now. We didn't used to be so sterile, so contained, etc. And what would have happened when our babies became toddlers, they became more inquisitive, more independent, and definitely more mobile. We developed a reflex that basically made the brain say, if children came across something they didn't recognize, berries on a tree, mushrooms on the floor, what would happen is the brain would say, don't eat that, that's not safe, we don't know that, it's not very familiar. And that kept us safe for a very long time. Now, let's fast forward to nowadays, when we are living more contained, more sterile. When you put something new down in front of your toddler and they have a big reaction and a big meltdown, for example, a biscuit breaks as you go to give it to them and it's not what they were expecting, they are still having that extreme response of danger, this might kill you, we don't want this. And that is why you are getting these meltdowns when you offer things that are new to them. Now, for all of these reasons, there are loads of things that we can do to help your child to move through them. But the first piece I want you to do is that piece around thinking about why your child is fussy, and then giving yourself a bit of a break to say, you know what? I didn't create this. This is not my fault. And from there, you can really start to understand how you move forward. And that is something that I can help you to do. If you would like some assistance with this, please get in contact via the website, via my Instagram, or comment below, and we can look at how we can move forward with your child's eating. If not, there's tons of information on the Instagrid and in my blog that is going to help you to get a better understanding of your child's eating.